sounds like little more than a joke at first. A chest of treasure in the deepest chamber of a dungeon suddenly springing to life, transforming into a monstrosity and sinking horridly jagged teeth into the adventurer who had once been set to loot it just moments earlier. But those wise enough know it to be more than a joke. As the third rule of dungeon survival states, sometimes a chest is just a chest. But don't bet on it. The Mimic is amongst the most iconic monsters one can encounter in Dungeons & Dragons, first appearing in the Monster Manual for Advanced D&D 1st Edition. The creature has since become a staple, appearing in every iteration of the game since then, as well as other famous franchises like Pathfinder, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Dark Souls. Naturally, a creature as popular as this has been storied with decades of lore, so here's everything you need to know about mimics. Before we get started, I'd like to kindly ask you to like this video if you enjoy it and subscribe for more in the future. You can also ring the bell if you want YouTube to actually tell you when this goes up. Interactions like that are the best way to make sure that the eldritch old god that is the YouTube algorithm will actually notice this content, and it really does help the channel grow. While you're here, I hope you check out my other lore, storytelling, and Easter egg videos covering your favorite fantasy, science fiction, and superhero stories. In a few words, mimics are shape-shifting predators able to take the form of inanimate objects in hopes of luring creatures to their death. A mimic's natural form is that of an amorphous, speckle-gray-hued creature with a smooth, hardened outer skin, giving it the appearance of a granite stone. However, they are able to alter their skin to perfectly mimic the color and texture of materials like various stones, woods, and other basic materials. Using this ability, these cunning creatures most often pose as stonework, doors, chests, or other mundane or enticing objects to attract a steady stream of prey. A disguised mimic is nearly indistinguishable from what it is impersonating until its prey blunders into reach, whereupon the monster reveals itself and attacks. A mimic is able to take almost any dimension, though usually it's no more than 10 feet long in any one direction. A typical mimic has a volume of 150 cubic feet and weighs about 4,500 pounds. Though they are unable to alter their mass, they are able to radically change their dimensions, growing into chests, flattening into paintings, or shrinking into books, and everything in between. The actual biology of a mimic's shape-shifting ability was studied and recorded by Merlin the Scholar, who observed the color and texture changes were accomplished by the shifting of pigmented liquids within a layer of cells between the mimic's interior organs and exterior skin. Though Merlin only noted brown liquid, the fluid can take on several different hues, and is brought to the surface when the creature is attempting to resemble wood, other varieties of stone such as marble, and various basic metals such as gold, silver, and copper. When attempting to emulate basic stone, this liquid is stored internally in large muscular organs that resemble bags and pumps. The fluid is often seen leaking from mimics when wounded by adventurers, and can be squeezed from the organs into the mimic's skin in roughly 6 seconds. The capillaries that carry the fluid can then be made to stand out or wrinkle in a pattern resembling wood grain, marble, or whatever the mimic needs. This process is easily reversed. The mimic simply wriggles and twists its body, draining the fluid back into its internal organ. The mimic grows replacement layers of skin beneath the outer one, which is constantly being worn away by the ravages of movement and battle. Additionally, they are able to excrete a different liquid that smells of rotting meat, attracting smaller, more common prey such as rats. Mimics are also able to produce a thick, glue-like adhesive slime that aids in seizing their prey. The slime can also catch any weapon that touches it. Any creature that is not absurdly enormous will be grappled by the mimic when adhered to this substance. A mimic can neutralize its own adhesive at any point or time that it desires, and it's also unable to stick to itself. This substance is also how the mimic moves. It uses strong pseudopod appendages to grasp at the ground and drag itself along. It can also be used to travel along walls and up to the ceiling, as easily as it would a floor. Reputedly, this adhesive is sticky enough that only the strongest adventurers have a good chance of breaking free without killing the creature first. To put in perspective how strong this adhesive would be, remember that the average mimic weighs roughly 4,500 pounds, and this substance allows them to effortlessly climb walls and stick to ceilings. Still, there are ways to weaken the adhesive. Pouring any alcoholic substance on the glue will weaken it for just under 20 seconds, allowing those caught in it to more easily break free. The adhesive dissolves in roughly 30 seconds after the mimic dies. The exact origin of these aberrations is unknown. Some have speculated that they are in fact not natural creatures, but were instead created long ago by now-forgotten wizards or alchemists to guard their treasures, and they have served that terrible purpose ever since, now either independently or to new masters. For example, dragons and other powerful creatures will sometimes host mimics as extra guards to their hordes in return for a steady diet of intruders and explorers. They reproduce asexually, offspring splitting off from the mother and growing to full size in just a few years. A good meal, consisting of 1 or 2 creatures of average human size, can sustain a mimic for weeks. It's generally thought that the skin and ichor of a mimic is useful in the creation of polymorph potions, and the adhesive glue and solvent sacs are sought out by alchemists, if they can be recovered without dissolving. Other internal organs may also be useful in the manufacture of perfumes, or considered delicacies in some cultures. There are 2 main varieties of mimics commonly encountered in dungeons, the killer mimics and the intelligent mimics. Do not let these labels deceive you. Both breeds are dangerous, just in different ways. The killer mimics are the larger of the 2, attacking anything that's nearby. The intelligent mimics, however, are generally friendly if offered food. Creating a sort of alliance of convenience with one of these intelligent mimics may prove worthwhile too. Though the killer mimics are incapable of speech, the intelligence one can speak several languages, including but not limited to Common, Undercommon, Orcish, Dwarvish, and perhaps even their own unique language. However, as the eras have gone by, the existence of this mimic language has come into question. If it does exist, the language is speculated to be a corruption of the original tongue spoken by the wizards who created them. Regardless, if somehow made friendly, these intelligent mimics may be persuaded to tell adventurers about what they have seen nearby, allowing safe passage through their territory and providing useful information. However, be wary. Even intelligent mimics hold to no moral standards as we recognize them. If a creature is sufficiently weakened, a mimic may change its mind for an easy meal, even if a bargain has already been struck, and those who have made long-term understandings with mimics have found them less than enthusiastic to follow commands. Understandably, the intelligent mimics are also much more adept at hiding when in danger or in search of a meal, often assuming the shape of partition walls, overhanging archways, or mundane rock walls if they feel threatened. If fleeing or being given chase, once out of sight, a mimic may transform into a rock or other nondescript object. Many adventurers hot in pursuit of a fleeing mimic have run past it and later been attacked from behind. Mimics live and hunt alone to ensure a large grazing area, though it's not uncommon for them to occasionally share their feeding grounds with other creatures. In fact, some form symbiotic relationships with other creatures, like the aforementioned dragons or other great beasts. Sometimes they can also be found in the lairs of constructs or incorporeal undead, lurking within the shadows, ready to devour the remains of victims those monsters cannot consume. They also constantly move in search of new prey, finding new caves or dungeons to wait for unfortunate passerbys to lure in. If a mimic were to find its way into a city, the results could be deadly. One memorable encounter with a mimic was recorded in one of the busiest market squares in Waterdeep, where the creature remained undetected for 2 winters. The frequent disappearance of street urchins and derelict travelers in the square every night prompted an investigation, which led to the discovery of human and animal bones piled nearly 60 feet deep, discarded in a sewer next to a statue that the square sculptor had no memory of installing. Even after this revelation, the mimic was only identified after the statue ate 2 City Watch guards who carelessly prodded it with their spears. The beasts have sensitive eye spots or patches of pigment sensitive to light, heat, and vibration all over their skin. Using these eyes, mimics appear to be able to see upwards of 90 feet in subterranean darkness, but only 30 feet in darkened areas above ground. This is because these sensory organs are easily overwhelmed by bright light, and daylight effectively blinds a mimic. This is why the creatures usually prefer to lair underground or in structures where the sunlight is either greatly diffused or blocked completely. The creatures also have strong immune systems and are unaffected by the deleterious effects of alcoholic drinks, as well as the damaging nature of slimes, molds, puddings, oozes, jellies, and gelatinous cubes. In combat, the Mimic will extend several heavy pseudopods from its body, bludgeoning creatures that are either within 5 feet of it or adhered to its body. If a creature is not already stuck to a Mimic and is struck by an attack, it is then adhered to the Mimic. The beasts can also bite creatures within 5 feet of its body, preferring to sink its teeth into those unfortunate enough to already be stuck and unable to escape. Those bitten by Mimic also suffer slight acid damage from the creature's inner stomach fluid splashing upon their skin. The pseudopods can also be used to wrap around the prey and squeeze, crushing any captured creature. Any weapon that strikes an adhesive-coated Mimic is stuck unless the wielder has the strength to wrench it free or the dexterity to avoid the slime in the first place. Though the killer and intelligent Mimics are the most common, there are other variations that can be found out within the world, some disturbingly close to home rather than delving into dungeons. An impersonator Mimic is not only able to emulate inanimate objects, but also take the form of a creature it has killed and consumed. Some writing speculates that impersonator Mimics are matured versions of an average object Mimic, killing, consuming, and growing until it splits into a smaller object Mimic and a new Mimic spawn, both of which may grow into impersonator Mimics to continue the cycle. However, these postulations have been disputed in more recent years. Regardless, impersonator Mimics are incredibly dangerous, able to absorb the memories and language of the last creature they devoured, sometimes carrying on their victim's life as normal, at least until they decide upon a new target. Like their more ordinary cousins, they hunt by luring targets into a trap, often preying upon kindness or hospitality. Still, they also keep their own lairs in ruins or other remote locations, inhabited by their Mimic spawns posing as objects suited to the environment. Mimic spawns are creatures born from larger impersonator Mimics, staying close to their progenitors, ready to sacrifice themselves if necessary until they grow into their own. They follow the orders of the impersonator that spawned them, shifting shape under its master's direction. Up to 4 Mimic spawns are able to latch onto or temporarily be subsumed into an impersonator Mimic, hidden as objects upon their person or within their body, moving with their master. They cannot attack or be attacked while in this state. The Metal Mimic is a more powerful relative of the ordinary Mimic, sharing all of the same abilities and characteristics of its weaker cousin. However, in addition to their ability to imitate objects made of stone, wood, and basic metals, the Metal Mimic can take the appearance and shape of items of more complex, raw, or finished pure metal of any color, luster, or texture. This includes iron, copper, gold, silver, platinum, but excludes adamantine and any alloy. Like its typical counterpart, the beast will take the form of a metal coffer to attract treasure hunters, or the shape of iron columns and pillars and passageways in which prey is expected to pass. Metal Mimics are also able to duplicate the effects of a simple light spell up to 4 times a day, causing itself or any other object within 20 feet to magically illuminate for somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute. The Metal Mimic is also able to shape its pseudopod extrusions into the form of daggers and swords, and when glowing with that magical light, this extremity will appear to be an enchanted blade. It can even project a crude form of the spell Nystel's magic aura upon that extremity, causing the imitated object to register positively under a detect magic spell, all in hopes of luring adventurers to their deaths. Interestingly, Metal Mimics also have 2 subspecies, though they are the opposites of typical Mimics. The larger Metal Mimics are relatively intelligent and can be non-belligerent, learning local languages and showing a willingness to negotiate for food instead of attacking on sight. The smaller Metal Mimics are the killer breed, bearing only semi-intelligence and deeply instinctive aggression. Mimics have had a surprisingly massive influence on fantasy since their introduction, but D&D is no stranger to borrowing elements from other franchises and adding it to their own system. Matthew Mercer's Bloodhunter class, for example, sometimes takes heavy inspiration from The Witcher, and if you'd like to know exactly how those mutant monster hunters are made, go check out my video explaining that horrible, painful process. Please remember to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more, and you can ring the bell if you actually want to know when new content goes up. Also, go follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram if you want smaller, bite-sized bits of lore from your favorite franchises. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.